us in the very first breakout session of the day. As you can see, we are going to talk all about design today. And so if you're just joining us now, I'm Leah from our YouTube channel. I've been hosting all day today, so hopefully I'm not a new face now, but I'm here with Liga Letina. She is the head of design here at Printify, and she's gonna give you some amazing tips to really get you guys to that $100 mark. Now, we're a little bit crunched for time today, so we aren't gonna do a live Q&A with us, but we have our amazing in-house graphic designer, Emma, in the chat. She will be answering all of your questions. You may have actually seen her before on our YouTube channel in our design series, so she'll answer any questions you might have. Now, we're gonna make it your way. You're here because you probably, hopefully, already know your niche a little bit, and you wanna learn how to create quick, simple designs that are going to sell and really get you to that $100 sale mark. And so if you know your niche, you probably know your audience, or you're starting to know your audience at least, right? The importance of design here, this is what gets your audience or your customers to actually buy the product. They're not buying just a t-shirt or just a mug, they're buying the design that is on that product. So ultimately, it's your design that needs to grab attention, okay? And this is why it's so important to know your audience, okay? So your audience, they might fit into different types of groups, whether they have to do with people and life events, ages, or different lifestyles. Maybe they're into fitness. How do you know your audience? Well, maybe you are a member of that audience yourself, right? You know your niche, you're a part of maybe Facebook groups within that niche. You follow trends or news or videos, blogs, all related to that niche. You survey people in that niche, whether they're your existing customers or your future customers, or even your friends and family who could fit in that niche. But be careful when you're asking your friends and family, you want an honest opinion, right? They might be a little bit biased to support you, but ultimately you are selling to others, not yourself, not just your friends and family. So it's really important to get to know who your audience is. And so when you do know your audience, you can start thinking about the designs that you need to put on your products. Liga today is going to tell us about kind of 5 main things that we want to think about to get a design to sell. What are those 5 things?
Well, it starts with being relevant, and thank you for pointing out the niches, because you really need to know who your audience is and what they like and what is relevant for them. So I hope you do your research and then you really know what is some kind of specific things that they like, maybe some kind of color palettes, maybe some elements that are specific, some visual graphic elements that they kind of connect to, or just some values that are really connected. So you have to know what they are after in order to start to design that sells and that actually gets you to that $100 sales mark. Another thing that is super important to get a good design that sells, it's to create a long-lasting design. And when I'm saying long-lasting, I'm talking about quality, and that is both the quality of design, artwork itself, but it's also the quality of the product that you're creating. And there's a couple of tips and tricks that we're going to talk about to make sure that you actually make really, really good design for the product that you're printing it on. And the 4th thing, I would say, it is the design has to be appealing. Well, we humans, we are emotional creatures, right? So we need some kind of emotional thing to connect to. So you have to think what, again, for that audience is something appealing. It might be fun element. It might be certain color palette that brings certain emotion. Maybe it's a text, it's the copy that again gives them inspiration. So it has to be in some certain way emotionally appealing so they can actually connect to, they want to invest their dollars in your design, actually help you to sell more. And it also has to be scalable, because you probably want to get more than one product sold and you want to get a couple of other products out there. So you have to think of how you actually can get that design that you have nailed to scale.
Right, so thank you. We have kind of a really nice framework of what we're going to discuss today. Can you dive in a little bit deeper about each of these attributes and maybe show us some examples?
Absolutely. So here I have two t-shirts for you. They're actually sold on Etsy. So how do you think which one is selling more? And the same question before you start. Sorry, maybe also our audience in the chat can put in their thoughts, like which one do you think is selling more, the white one or the black one? But Leah, what do you think?
So my first instinct, my eye goes automatically to the black one. Because I get drawn to that text. It's very easy to read. The first one, the white one, I just see kind of that big black box. It's very boxy. And then you look a little closer, okay, you see there's some details, some very small text. So I'm gonna say the black one.
And you're absolutely right. It actually sells more. And I'll tell you why. The boss of the t-shirts, they're created for rock music fans. You see the kind of rock theme there. There is guitar that is specific to the audience. So in a way it's relevant, but the black t-shirt actually is very much more successful in the way how they communicate the message. So there is like really easy to read text. It's less colors there, so it's better color contrast that actually helps the text itself stand out, and it also helps the cat stand out. Plus, I think they have also worked a bit better on the appealing side of the design. The cat is kind of more stylish, and also the text itself, it has a certain humor touch there. So it just, grabs attention and sells.
I say you can't go wrong with a cat wearing sunglasses. I mean, that's style.
No, you never can go wrong with that.
Okay, so we got an overview of an example, mentioned all those attributes. Tell us a little bit more about each attribute now. What does it mean to be relevant and specific?
Right. It brings me to a couple of things that I want to talk about. Maybe the best is, again, bring in an example. And before we started this session, we had a short chat with Leah, and we found out that a couple of things that we are into, but there was one thing that we have in common, so that's board games. So let's look into an example of board games and pretend that we're designing a product for board game fans.
I love board games, so this is right up my alley.
Yeah, so let's go into that. So if I would design a product for board game players or board game fans, I would go and look what they like. It's quite a specific niche. So I might go to some online marketplaces like Etsy, and check out what kind of products are there, what are selling really well, what have good references. I could also go to some social media platforms like Pinterest and see what people actually like, what I create to add to the boards, maybe where more likes are. So what is the thing that is appealing for them where they connect already? And I might also go to some other professional sites like Dribble or other paid sites where I could get more inspiration as a designer. And when I have found these things, then I would compile them in what we call a mood board. So basically one one board where visually I can see what I have found in my research. So I might have found that for board games I see dice or figures are quite specific, right? So that's kind of really what connects to the board games in general. There's also a lot of graphics, and if I look at the game boards, they're quite colorful. So I also see there are a lot of color going on. I might also have a look at a couple of packages and look at the typefaces that they use. So I might also add even some couple of fonts that I get like trendy or find trendy and inspirational, and try to extract maybe the color palette out of that. So that all is in front of my eye, visual, and I can already see what is specific and what could work really well for that particular target audience. And then I would go more into the design flow, and I could think of color palette, because I think color is super important when you start design and to make sure that you actually deliver the message. So Adobe Color is one of my favorite tools when I could just go in and see already pre-made color palettes, or I can write in a keywords, for instance, board games, and their AI would suggest me a color palette that they see that it's really working for that audience. Or even they have trendy colors, so you can see recent trends, what is like really fresh this season, or upload a photo, and they will also export the colors out of that.
So Adobe, that word might scare some maybe new or non-professionals like me away, like, oh no, Adobe, that's official professional software. is this Adobe Color? Is it pretty user-friendly? Is it free or is it a paid?
So the thing that you see currently on the screen, it's absolutely free. You don't need even to log in that platform to get these samples and play around with it. If you want to save the color palette and work in artwork in some Adobe software, well, then you have to create an account and purchase the license. But the beginning, it's absolutely free.
So enough to get your ideas, your inspiration.
Absolutely. So I kind of found that the color palette was like pink and purple and yellow and orange connects to that mood board that I created before. So I would go forward with this. How do you think it would work?
I love it. It's very bright, vibrant, and board games, they're fun. They're meant to be fun, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
the colors, I think, should be fun, energetic, right?
Yeah, I think it really works.
Okay, so this makes it relevant. It makes it specific to this board game niche. What about long-lasting? How do we make a design long-lasting for a specific product?
Yeah, and as I mentioned here, when we talk about long-lasting, it's really the quality aspect. And you can read a lot of design fundamental books and theory and blogs, and also Emma has this really, really nice YouTube video on design fundamentals. But there is a bit specifics that you have to keep in mind when you design for print. So not necessarily all of that design fundamentals will translate automatically to good print design. Because when we print, then we have to keep in mind the color palette. We have to keep in mind also printing techniques. So here we get a bit technical. And you also have to consider the material that you're printing on. And also material plays very differently with different colors. So one of the first things you have to keep in mind that when we are designing on screen, typically we use the RGB color format. So it's red, green, and blue mixture or composition, and it has 16.7 million colors in its spectrum. So it's way much more than human eye can see. But when we talk about print, we're printing typically in CMYK color format, and that's only 16,000 colors. So it's actually less than human eye can see.
Yeah.
So you see the difference there, right? And you have to keep that in mind when you are designing, that your bright and shiny designs on screen might not really transfer immediately like that on the printed product. So for instance, our color palette in RGB that we chose in Adobe, it's really nice, but let's see how it looks if it's converted in CMYK for print.
So the difference, I mean, you can see a difference, of course, right? And when you have a 16 million versus 16,000, yes, there will be a difference, but you have kind of clear expectations. It's not totally different. It's just made specifically for a t-shirt or for a sweatshirt or leggings, whatever. So it sets your expectations properly, I would say.
Absolutely. And still, I would say the contrast is there, the playfulness is there, so the color palette actually works, just we know what we can expect afterwards. And so that's something to keep in mind, also to avoid using things like gradients, things like transparency, things like shades, because they might not really convert directly to the printed product as you intended to be.
And if you're a little bit more advanced when it comes to design, gradients, if you want that gradient look or feel, we can use halftone gradients, right? Kind of like those little dots, and that'll give still the look of a gradient, but it's not an actual gradient.
Yeah,
just
so
a side note.
Tips and tricks around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe also, so there's example, but still you might wonder, how does it look in print product, right?
Yeah. Can we see it on an actual product now?
Let's do it. So here is design that we created for our board game fans. So there's a bit of specific elements like the figures, the dice, all of the bright colors. How do you think? Does it work?
I mean, it's definitely attention grabbing. I love it. It's very bright on screen. But knowing what I know, okay, maybe that's not going to translate so well onto a physical product.
And you were right. You know things already. So when we would print that on a t-shirt, on a hoodie, so quite possibly that the color would look like this. So there's certain things that we have already missing, and it's probably not what you expected, and it's not what your customers expected when they press that purchase button on your site, right? So you might end up with a couple of unhappy customers, a couple of returns, a couple of dollars lost instead of earned, so you would not really want to do that, right? So what do you think about this design?
Well, okay, it's definitely not as bright and vibrant on the screen, but it's still, I mean, it still has really nice colors. They very well fit the niche that we've chosen, this board game niche. It's kind of easy to read. It's some contrast, maybe.
I think there's still a good contrast. Obviously, we still have our specific elements, the dice and figures, and we have the playfulness in that. And the text is also, I would say, actually easier to read than the first design on the left-hand side. And it also works quite as look as on screen when we print that on the t-shirt or sweatshirt or hoodie. So here's the tip. Even if you design an RGB, which you might do as a beginner, you might design our mockup generator, you might design in Canva. In other tools, you might design an RGB, but use some converter tools and test it in CMYK. Or the best case is actually to get some samples of your products before you put them on stores to actually make sure that you have made a good design that actually works and sells well.
And you can make your own mock-up photos with your samples.
Oh yeah, you can. And so yeah, also the things that we spoke, like radiance, transparency, super bright colors, neon colors, something partly, avoid that when you're designing for print.
And why should we avoid that? What might it look like?
Yeah, we added also the print nightmare. So this is the thing that you definitely don't want to design, despite it might look really nice on screen, but yeah, gradients and transparency, and actually also low quality image might not be a good choice because that get blurred and just like very thin lines and all these shiny details. Looks nice on screen, keep them for screen. And I'm kind of like the unofficial copyright police. Do not steal designs, please. Be original. Those will sell the best. You can take inspiration from different elements of a design, but never copy a straight up design, okay? Yeah. But I would rather talk still about the things that you should do than the things that you should not do. Another thing I really like to do, I like to go in our mockup generator and play around with the product itself and before I start design, even if I design a professional software, because there are another set of technical things that you have to keep in mind. It's the safe area, is the print area, is the bleed area for AOP product. So you really want to know what is going to also the shape of the design that you're creating is more like vertical, horizontal, etc. And also keep in mind the print areas and especially the bleed areas for all our prints, because you don't want to have like some white areas to be printed and some kind of misaligned bleeds. You really want to make sure that the product is something people like and are happy to wear and show off, and also put this like or review button too. Absolutely. And yeah, for all of these details, there are tons of things you can still read. If you're in our mockup generator, you can always have these guides helping you to figure out what are the good things to keep in mind when you design for print. Yeah, we have all like kind of the specifics of resolution, DPI, what you need, and in our mockup generator, you can find those there, but we're not going to dive too deep into it here. Okay, so we've talked about appealing, long-lasting. Can you go, what else makes something long-lasting or appealing? So one thing we already touched is color, and there are a couple of more things that you need to keep in mind for a good design that lasts long around the color choice. So we looked at the colors palette, but you have to also understand what you want to do with the color that you choose. So definitely you have to look for contrasting colors because, again, good design conveys certain message, and you want to make sure the message stands out. And in order the message to stand out, it has to kind of be in contrast with the background, with the product color itself, and also with the other elements. So if your message is in text, then you make sure that the text stands out compared to background graphics, or vice versa. If you have one graphical element or illustration that you want to kind of be in front of the other elements, make sure that also it's contrasting compared to the background or other elements on that design. So make sure that the color that you choose really grabs the attention and drives attention and builds certain hierarchy. And again, in the Adobe color, you can always enter one of the color codes, and it will provide suggestions. What are the contrasting colors? Either like a triadic version, then you have two contrasting colors, or you can look at complementary colors, just two. Or if you want to, again, have something that stands out and more multiple elements around it, you can like look into shades. So a couple of elements, go in, play around it, choose what really works for you. And also think of when you choose the color, we already spoke, for board games, we need something that is fun, that is playful, energetic. So we went with pink, we went with yellow, we went with purple. To think of what is the emotion that you want to build for your audience, and what kind of emotional connection you want to build, because color also conveys this emotion. So choose the color wisely. And another tip from my side is think of the background color of your design too. And it's another good reason why I'm going into our mockup generator and testing out a bit the product colors before I get into design, because I really want to make sure how the background color of the t-shirt, if I'm going for yellow t-shirt, if I'm going for red t-shirt, how it's going to play together with my design. And there are some colors, like a red t-shirt is also very tricky actually, because the red color will kind of shine through a bit the printed colors, the white. So again, might be a bit tricky, and some hints you already see on screen. So test out also the background color, how it plays together with the main.
I think that's something that a lot of, especially beginner merchants, kind of forget to think about, is the actual color of the product as well. So remember, especially with t-shirts, we've got a ton of different color options. And so something might look fantastic on this white t-shirt, or like a natural colored t-shirt. You put on a darker shirt, like, oh no, your design gets lost, you may need to adjust it. Or you want to put on a pink t-shirt, purple t-shirt, and you need to adjust for different color products as well. That's very important.
That's true. And yeah, maybe let's look at a couple of examples.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to see some examples here.
So we spoke that yellow is really good color for our audience, for our board game players. So we try to play around low contrast yellow design. So how do you think, would this work?
Well, it's kind of hard to see and hard to read. It all kind of blends in. It's not much contrast, in my opinion. It's very yellow.
It's too yellow.
Yes.
Even for our audience. So yeah, that would not be a good choice. So especially if I put that in white background on white product, and plus keeping the print technique in mind, it can really start to disappear. It might look like half printed, and definitely you don't see neither the specific elements here, neither the copy itself. So it doesn't really even communicate the message, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's why we have our contrasting design, and it works really well, especially in black background. So you see really the difference, and you see the message and the specific elements in it.
Yes, that's 100 times better, in my opinion.
You see, and another thing that we mentioned, the transparency. So if we would add certain gradients and transparency in design, maybe it even looks quite good on screen, though.
I like that it does bring focus to a few elements, but then you start to lose some of the design and the text. I think the text is kind of important here.
Exactly. So that's totally lost, and especially in a print, again, it starts to kind of fade away. So keep this, transparency may be a way to make sure it looks at the end like you intended it to be. Okay, so no transparent designs, make sure there's enough contrast
tell us a bit more. What really creates a design that sells when it comes to colors and contrast?
Yeah, another thing that you have to keep in mind that if you want to build a contrast, then contrast is typically between 1, 2, 3, well, few elements, right? So there is something small and something big, and there's the visible contrast, but there's like a lot of kind of elements around and you don't really see the difference. Then it becomes just a crowd. So the same goes for the color. So if you design, make sure that you use maybe 1, 2 colors, and then keep in mind the background color. It's also a color. So if you have black t-shirt, then use a couple of colors in your design. If you have white t-shirt, also a couple of colors. Don't go for the all spectrum of 16,000 colors or 1,000 colors. But then again, keep in mind that you're designing for your audience, and it's always there are exceptions in all kind of cases. But the kind of general rule is aim for simplicity.
That could make a very interesting AOP t-shirt with all 16,000 colors.
Ooh.
I don't know if that would
test it
sell,
out.
but that could be an interesting sample to see. Okay, so a design should be somewhat simple then, yes?
Yeah, simplicity is one of the things that sells. And we also see from our best sellers that quite often the products that really sell are just the text-based designs with a slogan, a statement of 2, 3 words, or it's a super simple product with small or very significant graphic element rather like super detailed artwork. But then again, know your audience, because you know what your audience are after, and maybe in your case it's not the main rule.
Right. So simplicity can sell. You got to know your audience though. But what might a simple example look like?
Yeah, sure. Again, maybe we're exaggerating a bit here, right? But we also try to go with example that we would go with small, tiny lines and try to avoid these big blocks of color. And then, yeah, this is another no-go for print designs. Try to avoid the lines that are smaller than 5 pixels because, again, the message, as you see, is not really visible on screen, and we are with outline text, even if we put in a print in a black background, we are losing it, right? So here's the message that if you go for simplicity, then also the elements that you have on screen that also builds this kind of perception of simplicity or complexity. And in this case, it actually goes on the edge. It's too complex. And if we compare our initial design, well, this is probably working a bit better.
Yeah, and so this just proves too, again, you don't need to have fancy design skills, don't need anything super intricate, small, detailed, at least when it comes to t-shirts. Maybe there are some products where it works, but simple sells. Again, we're gonna repeat that, simple sells, it works. Okay, what about when it comes to text? Here, I mean, the text is nice, it's pretty readable, but it's still kind of maybe a little crowded or...
Yeah, maybe. And you're absolutely right. Text is also important. As we are designing something for our audience with certain message in mind, maybe text is exactly the tool to convey the message, how to make sure that the text is visible and it's easy to read. So when you think of text, think of how much of the words you have on design, so it's easy to read, and also think of the typography or font that you're choosing in order to make sure it is readable, and it's readable from a distance. Especially if you have a t-shirt, probably you want people around you to see, to be able to read it. So make sure it's visible from a distance and easy to read. But also keep in mind that text is also conveying this emotion. So a style of the font is very important to connect to your audience. So you have also to play around with a couple of fonts before you nail it and before you really create design that really works well for your audience.
Well, I'm personally very intrigued with text. Can we see some examples now?
We create this super fun one. Everyone knows Monopoly, right? So what if we change the Monopoly font? So how do you think? Is it working well?
I'm thrown off. Again, everyone knows Monopoly, probably, or I know it quite well. I used to love that game. to me now it just looks like a knockoff Monopoly, a fake Monopoly. So it doesn't fit the vibe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the readability is still good for this font, right? And alignment is pretty nice, and the contrast is nice, so it stands out. But yeah, something is off. And since the Monopoly is a family game that you play together with grandparents, and it's also around business and you know, buying real estate, etc., so you expect something more classical. So therefore this font for Monopoly probably would not work, and the one that we know is working really, really well.
All right, wonderful. So far we've covered designs that sell are long-lasting, appealing, relevant, and specific. What about scalable? What does that mean?
So that was the last thing in our 5 things that we have to keep in mind when we design that sells. And when I talk about scalability, so there are 3 aspects, or 2 aspects actually, to think of. So one thing, if you have really nailed the design and know it works, you can think of more variants. So you can think of more variants of the product. Let's say if you have designing for a t-shirt, then you think of more colors that you bring in. Always black and white, it sells very good, but you can think of adding some gray color palette, which is like the second top seller. You can think of maybe more natural colors like sand and cream, which is actually a bit seasonal for summer. You can think of blue colors, which are also quite well selling. Well, pink.
I wonder why pink.
I wonder why. Pink is getting very popular in the last couple of months. And well, thank you, Barbie. You have brought pink back on a palette. And also military green is working quite good. Or if you have nailed the design and it really sells, that you can think of what other products you want to bring in. You can make a collection. You can even extend one of the elements. Let's say we have really nailed that figure or that dice and people really love it. So you can extend that thing to multiple products. And again, our top sellers always are t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, also canvas, mugs and blankets and tote bags work really well on a top selling list. But here you have to know your audience, because you have to make sure that this product is also relevant for the audience in certain context that audience might use it.
I think for our board game niche, a tote bag could be great, because you know, you go visit your friends. How do you carry all your board games? You put them in a tote bag. At least I do.
I think for our board game fans, tote bag would really work well. A mug to bring to their board game, nice.
Tea, coffee, wine.
Yeah, because they're in a fun mood, they might have also socks with some elements of that, and remember the board game night, you know, or keep the memories with phone case with them.
Yeah, exactly. So some really cool examples here, but this breakout session would not be complete if we didn't talk about kind of a big theme we've had today, our new AI tool. So we're going to talk about this a little bit, and we are going to actually do some demos here, and we're going to let you guys also send us some of your prompts. We'll test them out, and we'll kind of just chit chat about them, see how they would work for a design, how we could make it fit for a t-shirt or potentially a different product. Kind of similar to what I did with Elisa during Ashisha's keynote. So,
yeah, I think you did really, really great job in introducing the AI tool in keynote with Elisa. It was super fun. But the question is, how do you create actually artwork that sells through that tool?
Yes.
And for that, it's important that, you know, all of the AIs, they're super, super helpful when you nail the input for them. So when you nail the description or requirement of the design that you want to create. And so for that, keep in mind that you have the main object in mind. Like in our case, that would be board games, right? So we want to have something around board games. Keep also in the description a setting where it is happening. So is it on couch, at a table, outdoors, at a mountain, for instance? And try to describe as much as possible some kind of emotion, setting, elements, even image style could be something that you add in the description.
So Liga is now going to show us an example of a good prompt, talk about it. And while she's doing that, I want you all to throw into the chat your prompts for us. We'll choose a couple out, throw them in here and see what they might look like. So Liga will describe what she's come up with here, and while you're typing away in the chat your prompts, we'll see what makes a good prompt, and maybe we'll get some fun designs here.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to some good ideas. So for us, I have a cat and a dog playing a board game in front of mountain, having fun, maybe pop art style and pink. So this is what AI image generator came up with. Well, to be honest, I'm not super happy because I would say there's too much of pink, there's not enough color contrast, so everything is kind of the same level. I don't think that this would work well. Cat and dog, they don't really stand out, and board game is definitely missing. So I would not be happy with this one.
They're super cute. I like the idea where it's headed, but yes, I agree that it could be better.
So actually, when I played around with this before, I think I got a couple of better examples. For instance, I think one of these could work pretty nice. What do you think?
Ooh, yeah. And even, I kind of like that fourth one, those two dogs or cats, I'm not sure, combo, cat
dogs, yeah.
Playing chess or something.
I would even go for the second or the third, because I also see that there is like really nice single color background that I would easily remove by our new background removal tool. So get it more like spacious and design that I can apply to multiple products, and it would be less boxy and squarey.
All right, so we got a couple good prompts here. Lisa wants a pilgrim hand poking a turkey on the beak.
Pilgrim hand?
A pilgrim hand poking a turkey on the beak. This is our cue that we can't forget about Thanksgiving, right? Everyone seems to go Halloween straight into Christmas. Thanksgiving is a niche too, right?
Oh, let me take it over my computer.
On the beak.
On the beak.
You guys have some great ideas here in the chat. I love this.
So let's see what comes up here. It's still I see that there is object in a prompt, there is action, but it maybe lacks a bit of description around it. Ooh, well, this is almost realistic. But I would probably play around a style. We have the comic book style here selected, but somehow
I think for t-shirts, usually some sort of style is quite nice. These kind of photo styles, this might be good for maybe like a silly calendar you want to make, or a canvas if you're selling funny canvases, but it's interesting.
It's interesting. I think the color contrast as such a color palette would work really nice, but what I'm a bit worried about, this is kind of, especially when we wouldn't go for that right-hand side one, but it's like, it might not really work nicely on a print, and also it's pretty boxy, so I'm not sure how it would like on my t-shirt.
All right, we got another, sounds like an awesome prompt from Molly. She wants a rocking red panda with a drum set.
Okay.
In the mountains, or in a mountain stadium, in anime style. I'm excited to see this one.
Okay, this is very specific. It's also hard to imagine what's going to come up here, but let's see.
So again, sometimes it's AI. It needs to think how to create these images, right? We're giving them totally random objects, random settings. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
This is pretty fun. I mean, the mountains in the right-hand side, again, it's kind of triangles rather than mountains, but it's pretty fun. So which one would you choose?
I can't even choose because they're all just amazing. Molly, this was a fantastic prompt. Thank you.
Very good job.
The drum set, I really like the drum set one, the fourth one. I feel like if we used our background removal tool on that, slapped it on a t-shirt, you could have some...
Let's try it on.
You might have a bestseller there.
Let's try it on. So I'll enlarge it a bit. I'm using it on a black t-shirt because I know the black t-shirt really sells. I can also try to use our background removal tool. And we have a demo ghost. It's not working.
That's okay.
That's okay. But another thing that I would try, one thing I would try to remove background and see how it actually works in the product itself. But another thing I would actually try to play around different products, right? So I could actually see how it works in them.
Kind of looks nice with the yellow. You do
looks
get
really
some
good,
contrast with
right.
that orange. But, so I'm going to have to cut us off here. Unfortunately, we are a little low on time. You guys had some great prompts. You do get 15 free attempts in your own mock-up generators. Play around with the prompts, see what you get, learn how the AI works, how it thinks a little bit, and it'll learn how you think a little bit the more you adjust your prompts. But let's go back to our slides now and just give us some summary, some key takeaways.
Right. The things that I want you to take away from this session is to remember these 5 components for a good design that sells. So make sure you find something that is relevant and specific for your audience, so you connect the design to your audience already. Think of it being long-lasting, so keep in mind the print-on-demand specifics, and also keep in mind this color and text and simplicity principles. So you actually have something that, looks good in print, is attracting attention, people want to show it off, people want to wear it long time, and people want to recommend it to your friends. And also make sure that there is a bit of this emotional aspect, so have this appeal, fun, or whatever emotion you're about to think.
Emotions speak. You can really sell to people's emotions, so don't forget about that, yeah.
And, scalable. When you nail the design, scale it to multiple products, or scale yourself using the Printify AI tool.
And so again, because it's so important, what not to do, just a quick reminder, do not do these things. You will not get a design that sells. You probably will not get a good quality design. All right, so remember now, to sum up kind of in my own words now, have a niche and know your audience. It'll really set that direction for you on a design that sells. Simple works and simple sells. You do not have to be a master graphic designer, need crazy Adobe Illustrator skills or anything. A simple text can sell. And make the design for print. Remember, your products are going to be printed with CMYK. There's only 16,000 colors, not your 16 million colors, right? So create a design specifically for print. Investing in a tool. It's not absolutely necessary. As you can see, our mock-up generator, we have all the tools you need. You can create text. We have a free graphics library. We have the AI generator now, background crop tool. But investing in a tool can help. Okay, it can aid you. Canva, for example, is a great place for beginners. It costs just as much as Netflix. There's nothing good on Netflix anyway, so you can get rid of that subscription, pay for Canva. And lastly, if it sells, repeat and adapt. So adapt it to different products, to different colors, scale it. If it's working, use that, really capitalize off that design that's working for you. And of course, we have all sorts of resources on our YouTube channel. We have a whole design series on there for you guys. We have our blogs, we have design guidelines, our help center. We have all sorts of resources to really help you make it your way. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and have a good luck.